looking to up your real estate investing game? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Sub2Deals Show with your host, Sub2 expert William Tingle.
Today's episode is sponsored by Kevin at Strong Jacob and Associates. If you want to learn how to do loan modifications, give Kevin a call today at 253-753-9595. Hey, Sub2ers, my name is William Tingle of Sub2Deals.com. I'd like to welcome you to this episode of the Sub2Deals Show, where we talk about all things subject to. Now, occasionally we'll cover other real estate investing topics, but it's always something to help you with your real estate investing business. Today, I am honored to have Armando Montelongo on here with me. When I got started investing, I'd been investing for a few years, and Flip This House became popular, and man, every Saturday I was sitting in front of the TV to watch that show. And they ran through, different people from time to time. But from 2006 to 2009, Armando was on there regaling us with his flips and how he did business in Texas. And I mean, it was just a great show and I really enjoyed it. So Armando, welcome to the Sub2Deals Show.
Thank you, William. How are you today?
Man, well, I'm doing fantastic and super excited to have you on here and get your take on what's happening in the market right now. But, I realize there are probably a lot of investors here that have just gotten started in the last few years. They're not familiar with you and how you got started and everything. I remember the opening for your episode so well. I coasted into San Antonio on the last tank of gas. I remember it saying that in the opening of the show. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in investing.
Well, it's really funny. On the television show, one of the lines on the intro was, "I coasted into town on my last tank of gas." And people used to think, well, is that really true? Or that's just a tagline for the television show. But the reality is, before I got started in investing, my wife at the time gave birth to my firstborn son. And when she did, the doctors literally cut her the wrong way. And so she lost half the blood in her body in 20 minutes. And I remember as they were going to take her off to the emergency room, her face was white and her lips was blue. And the doctor said, "Armando, be prepared to say goodbye because your wife may not live past the next 24 hours. So they wheeled her off to the emergency room. And when they brought her back, I just remember thinking, as I sat next to her in the ICU, like, I don't even know if she's going to make it past through the night. A nurse comes running in and says, "Mr. Montelongo, we have a problem. Now, there's a problem when your spouse is in the intensive care unit and they tell you have a bigger problem. And so I go talk to the nurse, and they had taken my son, Mondo Man, my newborn son, to Children's of LA by ambulance. So we were in Upland, California, and they took my son, Mondo Man, about an hour away, Children's of LA. And I remember I was torn. I was like, do I go with my son? Do I stay with my wife to go with my son? And I remember my father all the time told me something I'll never forget. He goes, "Armando," he goes, "you go be with your baby and we'll stay with ours." And I went down to Children's of LA, and the doctor says, "Your son only has 8,000 platelets." He says, "The average healthy human has 300,000 platelets. So he got bleed to death." So he says, if he got poked wrong with a needle, he says, or if he cried too hard, or he says, heaven forbid, if we just carried him and he bumped his head, he could bleed to death in a matter of minutes. Mm-hmm. And then the doctor says, "Armando, be prepared to say goodbye. Your son, Mondo Man, may not live past the next 24 hours. So here I am, and I'm told on the exact same day that the two people that I care about the most in this world may not live past another 24 hours. And so they were in the hospital for about 2.5 months. I was not doing real estate investing at this time. I remember I was doing all sorts of odd jobs. I tried to go out there and be a car salesman, and I got fired. I sucked at it because I was too honest, right? Somebody goes and says, "Armando, can I buy that car cheaper somewhere else?" And I said, "Probably," right? And then I remember, so I tried to get a job. In fact, I tried to get a job as a pizza delivery guy, and the pizza delivery place wouldn't hire me. And I won't tell you the name of the pizza delivery place, but I will tell you that it had a domino effect on my life, right? And so I couldn't get a job. I had nothing, right? My wife and my son come back from the hospital 2.5 months later, and we had a little condo in Upland, California, and we got foreclosed on. And we had to move into my in-laws' garage. And this wasn't a converted garage. This was move with a lawnmower, move with a weed eater, put a bed here, put the clothes in the corner, put a TV, right? Because poor people like TVs, right? Back then we had TV. And so we were literally on food stamps. We were about $50,000 in debt, and we were living in my in-law's garage. After that, I met a man who was very wealthy in real estate, told me I should get into real estate. I moved to San Antonio in 2001. I started doing real estate. So I made $1 million my first year. It was the big mold scare. So houses were depreciating by 40% overnight because we had this big mold problem going on in Texas at this time, which was silly, as if 100 degrees and 85% humidity, that mold never existed before 2001, right? People were making insurance claims against their insurance company for mold losses. So I made $1 million my first year. I made $3 million in 3 years. And after being in for a business about 5 years, I got the television show, Flip This House. Mm-hmm. When they were interviewing me, they were asking me questions about my past. And I said, well, I remember when we moved from California to Texas, I said, I had borrowed $1,000 from my father. I paid for the rental truck, and I literally had run out of money and was on my last tank of gas. And right outside San Antonio, about 30 to 40 minutes outside San Antonio, is the hill country. And I put my truck in neutral, and we literally coasted into town on our last tank of gas. And so they love the story, and they put it on the tagline of the show. And I think I always tell people, your worst stories is what's going to create your greatest successes. Mm-hmm. So if you're in the middle of your worst story right now, if you're in the most difficult time of your life, it's tough while you're doing it, but also understand and realize at some point, stop, try to breathe your way through it and enjoy it as hard as it is, because this is going to be the cornerstone of all your success. Mm-hmm. And one day you're going to look back and you're going to cherish this moment that you hate so badly right now.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I get that totally. So you guys on the show, you guys bought houses, I guess, for cash. You renovated them and you flipped them. Now, most of my students take over debt. I was Sub2Deals. I'm sure you're familiar with those. You've been in real estate a long time. Did you guys ever do any of that type of financing, the creative stuff, or were you generally just cash flip, that type of thing?
Well, on the show, we did cash flips and we did hard money loans. I've done a ton of subject to deals. I see, you do subject to deals. I've done a bunch of owner carryback notes, bought notes out. I would say one of the ways that made me a tremendous amount of money, and I teach this to my students, is by going out there and doing extremely creative financing. Right. So one of the interesting things, people were having a hard time making money in 2000, or they're having a hard time finding deals in 2007, right before the crash. So I started calling all the hard money lenders up and saying, hey, you have defaulted notes. Do you want to sell them to me? And they're like, nope. But about 4 months later, they suddenly went to sell me the defaulted notes. Mm-hmm. So I bought the defaulted notes and I started foreclosing on individuals who had bad hard money notes. I've done a number of subject to deals over the years. I love them. Subject to deals are amazing. They're great. So I'm super deep and super steep into the creative financing part. I love it. Absolutely. Creative. In my opinion, hard money in cash deals, that's easy, mm-hmm. right? The art and the creative financing.
Right. Right. And, it's really funny. And I know my students that's what we focus on today is mm-hmm. you can buy a house. I can buy a house today with zero equity and create a $50,000, $60,000 profit out of that thing over the next, 36, 48 months, just by taking over a good low interest rate note, wrapping it, selling it with seller financing at a higher rate, and just let them refinance me in 3 or 4 years.
I absolutely love doing it. And I love owner finances, right? Yeah. I remember I told a story to our individuals, our students, and I told them one time, I said, I bought a house. I did a subject to deal. And I was sitting in the living room, and normally people think like, oh, they got to give a little bit of down payment, or they have them catch up on their payments in arrears, right? They're 3 or 4 or 5 payments behind in arrears. And I said, that's not always the case. I said, sometimes the people will pay. So I'm sitting in these people's living room, and they had a big screen TV back when big screen TVs were very popular. I sat in their living room. I said, they had a brand new big screen TV, but they're 4 months behind on their payments. And I said, how much do you guys pay for that TV? They said, oh, about $4,500. I said, well, here's the thing: is you're 4 months behind, so you're about $4,300 behind in payments. I will take over your monthly payment, but I'm going to need you to make up those 4 payments. And they brought $4,300 to closing and made up the payments themselves. I rented the house out for the next 5 years and sold it back to them 5 years later. And they came back and wanted to rebuy the house. very, very profitable.
Yeah. You know, people don't believe that sort of thing. I bought a house. It's been several years ago now, but I bought a house from a guy who bought it as an investment, put a tenant in it, hired a property management company because, you know, he was going to be a big mogul or whatever, had one property. He sold it to me, gave me the house free. I mean, just took over the payments on it. All I did was go over, knock on the door. You know, his tenant hadn't been paying, so that's why he sold it. I knocked on the door and said, "Hey, we just bought this house and you haven't made the payments in 3 months. So you either need to pay or we're going to have to start the eviction process." She said, "Let me get my purse." I mean, all that guy had to do was go knock on that door and ask his tenant for money, you know, and she would have paid. It's really amazing. So, Armando, what are you guys doing today in this market? You know, all the investors are complaining about no leads. And it's hard to get leads or no foreclosures. There go half of our motivated sellers. What are you guys doing today to find leads?
So I think it's interesting, right? So one of the things I really explain to our students that so much of the business, of any business, any success is going to be mindset. You have mindset and you have skill set. Mindset, skill set, right? So in 2008, when everyone ran out of the market, we made millions. We made a killing because we were buying houses in Southern California that were going for $450,000 a year and a half before. We were picking them for $100,000, right? So it was about changing your technique for the marketplace. In 2012, nobody was in Las Vegas except for us and Zappos. And we bought $43.8 million of real estate. And they actually named it Armando Montelongo. It's really a team effort, but they named it Armando Montelongo Day. The city of Las Vegas did, and Clark County did. Because we flipped $43.8 million of real estate in 9 months. And this is when nobody wanted to buy Vegas, right? So it was the Summerlin area, and we were picking up houses for $85 to $125,000. If you look at those houses now in the Summerlin area, they're going for like $370, $380. So people are not getting the foreclosures they want. So I said, well, you got to change the technique. You need to be looking at conservatorship deals, right? People don't even know what conservatorship deals are. Well, people become a ward of the state. They become mentally, physically ill, mentally, physically disabled. They become too old, okay? So the state will go issue what's called a ward of the state, okay? They'll go make someone a ward of the state. That person will be a conservator. That conservator now controls all the assets. In fact, they just came a movie about what this is called, I Care a Lot. It's a pretty dark movie. It's a great movie called I Care a Lot, right? But they control all the assets. Well, the problem is these individuals' estates don't have enough money to pay for either the mental or physical hospital, the medical care, and the maintenance of the properties. So they need to liquidate this, and the conservator has the right, has no emotional attachment, but they have a fiduciary responsibility to do what's best for the individual who's a ward of the state. So selling the house many times, okay? So we teach techniques on how to go out and find these conservatorship deals, right? So that's one way. Another thing we do is we do demolition deals. Every city out there has demolition houses that the city's going to go knock down. It's very easy to get these houses off the demolition list. So, and these houses, for the by and large, are not on MLS. And you can call down to your city and get those deals directly from the city. And the city wants to get rid of them because the city doesn't want to knock these houses down because it's about $40,000 to go take a house all the way down. So that's just two of the techniques. I just had a class this last weekend where we were teaching a boatload of people, a ton of people, on how to go out there and find deals that wholesalers don't even know exist.
Right.
The average investor doesn't know exist. So those are two of the ways that we're teaching right now, which is conservatorship. By the way, nobody's going after conservatorship deals. No one even tries to those. Demolition deals, hardly anybody ever goes after. I did a podcast. I remember did a podcast about a year ago, and the guy's like, because Armando, I've been interviewing real estate investors now for 5 years. And he goes, I've had everyone on the show. He goes, not once have I heard about demolition deals. And demolition deals is a great way to go out there and capture big profit properties. Okay. And they're not on MLS, right?
Right.
So it's about changing the technique.
So what are you looking for specifically on the MLS?
Well, the thing is, so these aren't on, no, neither one of those are on MLS, right? So the conservatorship deals and the demolition deals are not on MLS. That's a different technique to where to go get those.
Right.
But here's the other thing I found is a lot of people will say, well, there's no deals out there. So when I really break it down, the average investor is not looking very diligently for houses. Like if we're just going to have a real conversation, they're not looking very diligently for houses. So last month, I got 8 houses under contract off MLS in a single week. Off MLS, right? So that tells me So when inventory is low, competition is lower, right? House flippers are a very fickle bunch. For those who are actually successful, because it's like fishing. If a fish isn't biting, they don't even go to another pond. They just like pack up all their gear and they go home. Okay. However, the really successful ones, those who make a long career out of it, know that when the economy is low, okay, or the economy is bad. So the economy is not necessarily bad right now. It's going to get bad. Okay. But right now, inventory is low. Competition goes lower. When foreclosures get flooded on the market and people are like, oh, house pricing is going down, it's a phenomenal time to buy and there's less competition. They also know a little over a year ago, when competition was sky high and housing prices are skyrocketing, they understand they better buy greatly undervalued and don't take it as this competition that you're seeing so many people jump in is going to last, because it's not going to.
So it sounds like most of the deals that you're getting today, I mean, you mentioned three: conservatorship, demolition, and MLS. I mean, you're dealing less directly with the homeowner and more with circumstances that are happening.
We definitely deal with homeowners. Well, I guess if you're doing probate deals, you're dealing with the executors, so not really dealing with the homeowner they've passed, right? So we do deal homeowner deals like tax liens and tax deeds, but I just want to go through your audience some different terminologies that so many people probably, like, you've heard of these. Most people have heard, a few investors have heard of these, but by and large, most people haven't heard of conservatorship deals or demolition deals, right? So I just want to throw them something different. So we do deal with homeowners still, for sure, absolutely. But there's alternate ways to go out there and find deals. And a lot of people think the wholesalers are snatching them all up. They have to remember, wholesalers by and large are a very unsophisticated crowd of people. There's only a few very, very good ones. Just like with house flippers, only a few very, very good ones. And so they should never be intimidated. It's like when I first started, right? Everyone's like, oh my God. And like, when I first started, they're like, oh, don't invest in Miami. The Brazilians own Miami. Don't invest in LA. The Chinese own LA. And that's not how it works. Those are people's perception of what's going on.
I know that's been a tactic that a lot of creative investors have been using for the last couple of years. As the market's gotten tighter and deals have been a little bit harder to come by, is focusing on wholesalers, because wholesalers market like crazy. I mean, they robo-dial and they mail 10,000 postcards a month. They're looking for that 50, 60 cent on the dollar stuff. And most wholesalers, in my experience, don't know what to do with a fully leveraged property. So they just file 13 that thing. But that's been a tactic we've been using for the last couple of years, is contacting wholesalers. Say, hey, send me those leads you can't do anything with.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. I love it.
So tell me, what changes do you see that COVID's made in the market? Any at all? Or is it just business as usual for you? Have you changed anything to deal with it?
Well, for me, I plow forward. But listen, when I first moved here in 2001, the Texas economy was crashed because of the mold scare. Okay. I went through HUDs being pulled off the market right after Hurricane Katrina, and it again affected the market massively. I went through the crash of 2008. I've gone through multiple booms and multiple crashes, economic crashes, right? And so when COVID hit, I had to talk with my company. I said, guys, we've seen this before. Most people are going to stop working, which is what's happened. I said most people are not going to push forward. People are going to work 70% less during a recession. So though economically there was an overall recession, people experience personal recessions. During a recession, people work 70% less. So if we work 30% harder, we'll be 100% ahead. So we continued to push for deals. And what we found is competition in the market diminishing. People saying they can't find deals, but not actually looking for deals by and large. And so pushing, and my students, they've had a tremendous amount of success doing this, because we have weekly webinars with them. Even the people who've been around for 10 plus years, they're all a part of our weekly webinars and whatnot. And so we just continue. I wouldn't say it's fully business as usual, in the sense that we're preparing for what's going to come about. And the backup in foreclosures is going to cause a housing crisis. It's going to cause a crash. Okay. How much the government pumps the economy to prevent that crash is going to be another thing. But it's going to cause, because Americans have consumed as much as they can possibly eat. And on top of that, they haven't been making payments. So that's going to have an effect on the economy for sure.
The Sub2Deals Show with your host, Sub2 expert William Tingle. We'll be right back.
Listen up, investors. Ever wanted to learn the right way to do a loan modification? Strong Jacob and Associates has a do-it-yourself course complete with text, video, and legal support. Learn the right way to lower monthly payments and add real value to a distressed seller while you improve your monthly cash flow by securing lower mortgage payments via loan modification. Don't delay. Visit www.preventforeclosure.us or give Kevin a call today at 253-753-9595.
Back to the show, the Sub2Deals Show with your host, Sub2 expert William Tingle.
What are your thoughts on this, the continued extension on the moratoriums for the foreclosures? I mean, I know I lived out of country for several years and just moved back here a little over a year ago. I live in Colorado Springs now. And I know typically when I first moved here, there would be 75 to 100 foreclosures every month in El Paso County. Now there are 3. I mean, when is this thing going to end and what's going to happen? What do you see happening to the market when they say, okay, foreclosures are back on now? What do you see?
When the foreclosures go back on, you're going to see housing prices go depressed. They're going to lower. Okay. I think there's going to be an initial run. A bunch of foreclosures are going to get bought up, and then there's going to be a massive surplus of them. I think that it's going to cause housing prices to go down. Okay. When housing prices go down and you have all these people who've been paying $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $80,000 over market value for homes, it's going to mess with their heads. And psychologically, they're going to go, man, I'm 50 grand upside down on my house. When that happens, people start selling houses. When people start selling houses, the market gets flooded. And it becomes this huge cycle. I remember when we were doing our seminars, I remember starting seminars in 2008, 2009, and people in California come and go, I'm upside down $200,000 in my equity. And I said, can you afford your house payment? They said, yes. I said, don't sell.
Right.
But people would still sell because they're like, I don't want to lose $200,000 of equity. And I said, you're not if you haven't sold. And those houses ended up going up another 60, 70% from when it had gone below 200 grand below an equity. They would have made ton of money off those houses.
Yeah.
So I think it's really bad what they're doing. I think they're going to pump the economy. It means I think they're going to continue it out. My best guess is through the end of the year. Okay, the current administration, they don't want to look bad by all the foreclosures hitting the marketplace. And so they're really creating a false economy on top of what already is a false economy.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I compare when there's a crash and the properties are devalued, it's almost like owning stock. You know what they say, if your stock value goes down, you don't really lose until you sell it. I mean, you're just sitting on it right now. So I think you're absolutely right about staying in a house, even though you're underwater. I mean, it's always going to come back. I mean, real estate's just cyclical. That's just the way it works. Sure. It's always going to go down. It's always going to come back for sure. You know, you mentioned a couple of times your students and your seminars and whatnot. Are you still teaching? I mean, do you still have your university? And I know I see your post. I think your students are called the Wolf Pack. Is that right?
They're called the Wolf Pack, yes. We don't call it a university. Trump got in a lot of trouble for calling his stuff a university. We definitely don't call it that. But we're the longest standing educational company out there. We've been in business longer than Rich Dad Poor Dad. They've opened and closed their business about 4 or 5 times since I've been in business. So the longest standing real estate educational company out there doing seminars. So yeah, we have a Wolf Pack, and our students absolutely, they love it.
Yep. Yeah. Right. Tell me, you know, I know when you do a search for your name, you have some things come up about some problems that you've had with the training in the past. Do you have any insight you can share with us on the cause of that, or what you think happened? Or
well, I think I've been pretty vocal about it in the past. It's really not problems with the training. It's more so the individuals who don't want to follow through with the training who do it. And I've said this in multiple interviews, people who just don't want to do the work, right? So one of the keys of becoming wealthy is taking responsibility for your actions, right? So you have to go out and say, man, I did well this, or I sucked at this. I did a good job here, and I didn't do a good job here. And so we have, and we're very vocal about this, even with the people that we do train. So I have about 400 people who got together who decided to sue me and said, oh, we didn't learn anything in our training. We didn't learn anything. But what's crazy is you break down the numbers. So we'll have 300,000 people come through our events in a single year. Okay. So I've been teaching now since 2007 and doing seminars since 2008. So when you take the numbers, 400 people, it's about a 0.001% of people who've been dissatisfied with it. And when you take those down even further, there's a huge number of people that we've actually followed up who actually done real estate deals since going through our training, but they just want to go for free. Now they just want to go get money back and go for free. Right. And then a number of them after that, I actually have them on. This is the funniest, this is the greatest thing in the world. I have a number of them who actually shot testimonials with me on infomercials. And they're like, hi, they're like, Armando helped me make $45,000. Armando made me $35,000. And now they join a lawsuit going, I didn't make anything. So that stuff's going to come back to haunt them. It's going to bite them in the butt, because I've had 2 federal judges look at it, 2 federal judges, and dismiss it and say, there's no evidence this man's done no wrongdoing whatsoever.
Right.
So now they went and they filed in state court, and we feel confident that's going to go away as well.
Right. You know, when I got started teaching, which I started investing in 1999, and about 5 years later, I had so many people asking me, how did you do this? How did you do that? And so I just wrote a couple of courses and started teaching. But one of the things I learned at that time when I started getting educated on how to teach properly, they threw some numbers out that were astounding to me, that 97% of people who buy a course or attend a seminar will never, ever really buy a house. They just don't put in the effort and put in the time. Do you find that to be the case?
I find that the stats have been, for a lot of the competitive companies who do seminars, that they have less than 1% of the people be successful. I do not know what our current numbers are at, but at one time we were tracking people who went to our bus tours, that 45% of them were involved in a deal on some level.
Oh, that's
and
great.
I think that's because we do such a deep job on the mindset. Mm-hmm. I'm I tell people, listen, don't think of me as a real estate investor, think of me as a systems guy. I have the ability to take stuff that's very, very complex, make it very simple, like in business, right? So on a side note, our educational companies expanded. One of the hot topics right now is cannabis, right? It's a huge topic. It's a very complex, convoluted, disorganized business that I've gone and I've taken and made it very simple, systematic, and organized in a way to create what's called an MVP, or minimal viable product, in a way for people to get the most yield and make a huge rate of return. I struggled with this internally for a long time, because it's like, I'm a real estate guy, right? But I own a number of businesses. I own 7 different multi-million-dollar businesses, right? So we finally open up an arm where we're teaching individuals how to go out there and become involved in the cannabis business. It's the funniest thing in the world. I don't even smoke, right? But become involved in the cannabis business, because what we're really great at is educating people and showing them how to get into businesses, right? But so much of it is taking what's complex and making it simple, and then give them actionable items that they can go get involved and do something, right? Because it's like a child. So it's really funny. We as trainers have to look at it like this. We as trainers go and we tell people, here you go, right? But we don't do that with our kids, right? What do? We grab by their little chubby fingers and we're like, come on, you got it. Come on, you can do it. Do the left foot, do the right foot, do the left foot. And they're like, yay! We're the same way as adults, right? Science shows we're the same way as adults. We need to broken down small. We need to be cheered on. We need to feel accomplished. And then we need more reinforcement, and then more training. And that's what we do in our trainings. We don't treat anyone like a child, but we really break it down in a way that it's bite-sized chunks. And then when they do a great job, we make sure that we reinforce it extremely well.
Right. So does your real estate training, is it focus on flipping, rehabbing, or is it all encompassing with creative finance and everything else?
So what we do is initially we go and get them involved in flipping. Mm-hmm. Because that's what the vast majority of our particular students want, is flipping, right? That's what I'm known for. So we'll teach them flipping. Then from there, we'll have breakout classes where we'll go teach them creative financing deals. Like the one we just did this last weekend was creative deal finding, right? And so we'll have various breakout classes. The core is flipping, because it really helps create an asset evaluation, how to properly evaluate an asset from both the purchase process and from a cash flow process. And then from there, we build all of our other classes off of it.
I see. In your opinion, I mean, when I got started, I had a decent job. I wasn't deeply in debt. I just wanted to do something different. I worked a Carlton Sheets infomercial off late night TV. And stupidly, I didn't know it didn't work, because everybody says real estate doesn't work. But so I just read it. I did what he said to do and started buying houses. but I didn't start with flipping. The only few handful of houses I've done in my life have been accidental. Do you, in your opinion, is that the best place for a newbie to start is flipping or wholesale?
I tell them flipping over wholesaling. I think the reason most people wholesale is because they don't have the skill set for flipping, meaning they don't know how to budget the repairs or the finances. That's why so many people buy from wholesalers, and the wholesalers give too high of an ARV and too low of repairs.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, right, they get too high of an ARV, too low of repairs, and all of a sudden the flipper gets in and realizes the ARV is here and the repairs are here. And there's hardly any profit in the middle, right? It's a real problem. Mm-hmm. So I think that if you can remove the glass ceiling, that flipping is a great way to do it, because we have it so in our classes we systemize it, right? To where if you're going to build a brand new home, which we don't teach, brand new home builders use the same materials, use the same colors, use the stock numbers, use certain model numbers. Okay, so we teach a way of evaluating the deals that all the people in my Wolfpack learn the same way to evaluate. They all use the same colors. They all use the same cabinets. They all use the same stock numbers and model numbers. What it does is it removes the guesswork, so that when they're looking at the deal, they know what the ROI is, what the profitability is going to be, or within a range of where the profitability is, if they properly, accurately look at the numbers, right? So I think flipping is great for people to get into because it gives them that immediate cash flow to pop in, right? But you teach people how to do subject to deals. I think subject to deals are great. They're no risk deals, or you can't say no risk. They're low risk deals, right? They're very, very low risk deals. And I love subject to deals. I think they're amazing to do, and I think they're amazing to do. And I don't think a lot of people do them very well.
I agree. I think a lot of people go into it with the idea that you're going to do this thing, and if everything falls apart, you're just going to walk away. But you're leaving that homeowner holding the bag and some other stuff. I mean, so you've really got to care about the person you're dealing with. This is a people business that we're in, and when we do sub-twos, we're kind of partners with this seller until the loan's retired. So there's definitely an ethics issue.
I like what you're teaching, because I've seen some people preach the lack of ethics on subject to deals, because you can do it. Like, you can be unethical doing it and really jam people, and that's not okay.
No,
right?
It's not.
So it's amazing that you're teaching that, right? Because it's a very, very, subject to is a very powerful technique.
Oh, it is. Absolutely. I mean, literally, if you've got no credit or bad credit, whatever, you can go out and buy as many houses as you want.
Yeah.
And buy, if you're in a market like mine where the median home price is now $400,000, you go out and buy half dozen houses this year. I mean, you're over $1 million in real estate on other people's loans.
I love that. I mean, I do believe people should go accumulate 10 subject to deals, sit on them, let them roll upwards. Mm-hmm. And they can make enough money for retirement, or at least a good chunk towards retirement, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me, Armando, if you're advising a new investor, somebody comes to you and they say, man, I'm just getting started and I don't know where to start. I just know I want something better than what I've got. And I think real estate's a vehicle to get me there. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give them getting started today?
My advice absolutely sounds self-serving because I teach real estate, right? But I tell them, number one, you have to have somebody teach it. You have to have a mentor. Now, people have heard that term so many times, get a mentor. They're a little bit deluded about it, right? But they need to have a mentor, and the mentor needs to have a system, right? So here's what I say. Listen, I'm different than you. You're different than me. So I can be your mentor, but we have different strengths. We have different weaknesses, right? Maybe you're smarter than me. Maybe I'm more diligent than you. But if I have a system to plug and play, right, then you can do it exactly the way that I do it, right? So here I'm drinking this bottled water, but guess what? To make it, manufacture it, to fill it, to put the top on and distribute it is a systematic way of doing it, right? So I know that every time I get this bottle of water, it's going to taste the same. It's going to be about the same price. Same thing with the way I teach people is make sure that you have a mentor and your mentor has a system of doing this. Okay. That's number one, right? That's absolutely number one. Number two is when we go out there, as we tell people, don't worry about the money, because everyone starts worrying about how to get the money. I said, first you find the deal, then you'll find the money. You find a good deal, the money's going to follow, right? And the reason is because if you find a deal that has $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 worth of equity in it, you'll find an investor who wants to share in those profits. If for nothing else, out of a shared greed factor, you're going to find an investor who wants to be a part of that and who will loan you money. There are plenty of individuals who would love to go make 10% of their money, much less go and get them 30 or 40, 50% of their money over a short period of time, right? So second is find the deal, and then we'll find the money, right? And then from there, I teach them how to properly structure the deal, which is absolutely key. So.
Absolutely. Totally agree. So I know you're still teaching, you still got your wolf pack there. So if someone wanted to contact you about learning your systems, how would they get in touch with you?
Well, what I'd like to do, I could do is just give them a copy of my book for free.
Okay.
I have a best-selling book. They can go, and here's what I like about it. It's written. They can read it from digitally now, right? Mm-hmm. But what's cool is one side tells the story of how I went from living in a garage on food stamps to going and making my first $1 million. And then the second one, so it builds belief, which is key. And the other side of the book actually teaches the strategies. So if people want to go to armondosbook.com, they can get a copy for free for your audience. Okay. So we have actually set up a URL for your audience. This is not for everybody, but it is. We actually laid it out for you, William. So
okay, cool. Okay. So
book.com, ARMANDOS.
armondosbook.com, and they can get a free digital copy.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it won't be up forever. They're going to take it down, but it is for your audience as you're listening to.
Okay, fantastic, man. My guys love freebies, so yeah, that's great. The most recognized word in the English language, isn't it? Okay, all right, fantastic. Listen, man, I appreciate you so much taking time. I know you're a super busy guy, and you're all over. I saw you on an episode of The Undercover Millionaire a couple of years ago too. So I know you're still. Yeah. You're doing another real estate show anytime soon? Are you guys planning anything?
So we did Undercover Boss. Undercover Boss was great.
Right.
We ended up being the highest rated Undercover Boss of all time. So that was really cool. I've been approached by Steve Harvey's producer to do a real estate show, by Oprah Winfrey's ex-producer to do a real estate show. I think I'm just in a different place in my life. Mm-hmm. I love teaching people. I have a bunch of kids now. I have a 22-year-old Mono Man I told you about, but I have a 10, yep, a 7, and a 4. And I don't want to be filming in California, right? I don't want to be away from filming them. I enjoy running my businesses are very successful. I enjoy running them. I love it. And being a dad, that's my number one goal. So right now in my life, maybe when they're older, I'll do a TV show, but right now I'm good not doing TV.
I hear you. Okay. So everybody can go get your book, and from the book, they can find you if they want more information on your training.
Appreciate it, William. Thanks for having me.
Fabulous. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you. Okay, Sub2ers, that's it for this episode of the Sub2Deals Show podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode along with a complete transcript at sub2podcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you would give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And if you haven't yet, join our free Facebook Subject To group at sub2forum.com. So until next time, keep learning, keep talking to sellers, and you will buy some houses.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Sub2Deals Show with William Tingle. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And for more great content and to stay up to date, visit sub2deals.com and on Facebook at Sub2Deals. We'll catch you next time.